Now, talking about spiritual rights, the spiritual rights of women in Islam, we see that unlike the popular Christian belief that Eve was responsible for the sin of Adam, and thus all women have been cursed, Islam does not share that point of view. If we refer to Genesis chapter 3 verse 16, it mentions that God said to Eve when she tempted Adam, that Eve tempted Adam, God said to Eve, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children, yet your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. So in the Bible, God is telling Eve that I have cursed you with childbirth. All women that come after you will suffer childbirth as a torture for them to pay for your sin because you tempted Adam, and men will rule over you. This is the status of women in Christianity. It further mentions in 1 Timothy chapter 2 verses 11 to 14 that Adam was not deceived, but the woman was. So the blame is totally on Eve, not on Adam. In the book of Leviticus chapter 12 verse 2, it has been mentioned that if a woman conceives and bears a male child, then she will be unclean for 7 days. But if she bears a female child, then she shall be unclean for 2 weeks. So again, it is evident that if a female child is born, it is bad luck. It is worse to have a female child being born, and the men have a higher degree in society. If you look at 1 Corinthians chapter 11 verses 5 to 7, it mentions that a woman should cover her head as she is the glory of man and man is the glory of God. And if she does not, shave off her head. These are the exact words of the Bible. That if a woman does not cover her head, shave it off. But yet you will find that in the Christian society, in the Western world, these teachings are not practiced. Because about 100 years ago or so, they realized the hypocrisy within their own books. How they have been changed by man according to the times. These could not be the words of God. In contrast, if you look at the Holy Qur'an, in Surah Al-Ahzab, chapter 33, verse 35, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, Verily, the Muslim men and women, those who submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Islam, the believing men and the believing women, the men and women who are obedient to Allah, the men and women who are truthful in their speech and deeds, the men and women who are patient, the men and women who are humble before their Lord Allah, the men and women who give Sadaqat, that is Zakat and charity, the men and women who observe fasting in the month of Ramadan and the optional fasting, the men and women who guard their chastity, and the men and women who remember Allah much with their hearts and tongues. Allah has prepared for them forgiveness and a great reward in paradise. There is no distinction. For both the men and women, there is equal reward if they do righteous deeds and if they follow the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No person in Islam has superiority over another, no matter what the gender, what the race, what the color, what the nationality, except if one of them has greater taqwa or piety or righteousness. Only then can a person be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, there is no distinction whatsoever. Similarly, with the issue concerning Adam and Eve, it has been mentioned many times in the Holy Qur'an. And each time, the blame is on both. That they were both tricked by the devil. It was not Eve's fault on her own. They were both at fault. So man is not free from sin. And not just Eve. Neither is a woman cursed or punished because of that. In fact, we are told in chapter 4 verse 1 that respect the womb that bore you. Look at the contrast between Christianity and Islam. In Christianity, the conception or pregnancy is viewed as a curse from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a woman. But in Islam, Allah ta'ala mentions respect the womb that bore you. The status of a pregnant woman is exalted in Islam. That is why there is a hadith of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, where he mentions that paradise lies at the feet of the mother. This is the respect that Islam gives to the mother. In another famous hadith, where a man came to the Holy Prophet and asked, who deserves his respect and compassion more? The Holy Prophet said, your mother. He asked again, and who after that? He said, your mother. And he said, who after that? He said, your mother. And when he asked, who after that? He said, your father. So the first 3 times, he said, mother, 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 and then the father. This is the status of women in Islam. And because of the fact that they go through the pain and trial of childbirth, their level is exalted. If you look at the relationship that one must have with his wife, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in Surah Rum, chapter 30, verse 21, that among his proofs is that he created for you spouses from among yourselves in order to have tranquility and contentment with each other. And he placed in your hearts love and care towards your spouses. In this, there are sufficient proofs for people who think. In a hadith of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, reported in Abu Dawud, the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, mentioned that the most perfect in faith amongst believers is he who is best in manners and kindness to his wife. When you now begin to look at the contrast and begin to look at the times in which these verses were revealed, people would have been quite shocked, because this is the time when women had no status in society, when they were buried alive. It was a shame if a daughter was born in your house. And when these verses came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, look at how the hearts and minds of people were changed and how they started to respect women. With regards to daughters, it has been mentioned in Surah An-Nahl chapter 16 verses 58 and 59. And when the news of the birth of a female child is brought to any of them, his face becomes dark and he is filled with inward grief. He hides himself from the people because of the evil of that whereof he has been informed. Shall he keep her with dishonor or bury her in the earth? Certainly evil is his decision and choice. In Islam, leave alone burying your daughter alive. Even if you are sad on the birth of a daughter, it is haram. Even if you are sad, even if you have any ill feelings on the birth of a daughter, it is haram in Islam. Let alone burying a daughter alive. So in contrast, when you look at other religious teachings, when you look at the teachings of the times, and you look at the teachings of Islam, you will see the truth from the falsehood. It will become very clear to you. With regards to the educational rights that were only given to women in the 1800s and 1900s, where they were allowed to study, where they were allowed to go to schools and universities. These rights were given to women 1400 years ago. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Alaq, chapter 96, verse 1, Ikra bismi rabbikal lazi khalaq. Read, recite, proclaim in the name of your Lord and cherisher who created. And this message was for both men and women to seek an education. Ikra. And there is the hadith of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, where he mentioned that to seek an education is an obligation on every Muslim, man or woman. Though other religions might discourage questioning their beliefs or seeking an education, Islam makes it an obligation. Islam makes it a part of religion itself, that you must seek an education. Even if you have to go to China, you must do so. And this is true for men and women.